welcome to the call, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. And if you're joining us on Facebook, welcome there too. We can't see who you are. And Chris, Ian, Sally, welcome. Everyone else that's joined us. Katie will be back in just a minute. We're going to talk a little bit about cholesterol tonight. And, you know, how does cholesterol affect your health, and what things can you do naturally to lower it? So we just had a big holiday. It was Thanksgiving, and it's kind of a feast. It's you know, a time where we give thanks to all the things that we have, and I think back in the old days, it was because they were enjoying the harvest and of the crops and everything like that. And so it was a big feast, and it continues to be a big feast to this day. And so really, I just spent the last 3 days eating. And that's one of the reasons in the United States, in America here, between Thanksgiving this weekend and New Year's, the end of the year, beginning of next year, typically the average person gains 8 pounds. 8 pounds, right? That looks like 9, but it's 8. 8 pounds. So think about that. And but depending on your diet, depending on what you're eating, you can actually influence your metabolism, and you can trigger you know, your inflammatory markers to go up. You can trigger the cholesterol to go up. And there's kind of a false belief that everybody has, that they think that cholesterol is due to eating fats, the wrong fats, and there's somewhat a little bit to do with that, but not as much as a person would really think. And a study came out. Hey, Katie, a study just came out. I published it on my Facebook page the other a week ago, and it said that the University of Washington did some research, and they discovered that all the things that they used to tell us that were bad about red meat were actually false. It doesn't cause the increase in cholesterol. It doesn't cause heart disease. It doesn't cause strokes. It doesn't cause diabetes. What do you think of that, Miss Vegan?
I'm not vegan anymore.
Oh, okay. But
I told you that. No, yeah, in the course that I recently did too, actually the best type of red meat to eat is grass-fed or wild. Obviously, that's why you have wild meat. Or grass-fed, and actually it's the grain-fed cows, which we don't tend to have in Australia. They're mostly grass-fed. Changes the type of fat in the actual meat as well. So that was true. So yeah, I took some notes. So Dr. Kurt and I were talking about doing a call on this subject, because quite a few people have been asking us, you know, my cholesterol's too high. I'm not eating any fat. I'm hardly having any fat, and, you know, I'm taking some supplements, but it's still not working for me. Why is that? And so I thought that would be a really good call to get into, and to talk about the reasons why cholesterol can go up, and also the misinformation out there that there's, you know, the new research, you know, talks about the importance of having good fats in your diet and reducing, you know, those sugars that basically can cause sort of problems. So I've got quite a few notes here. So if I glance down during the call, it's because I'm glancing down at some notes and I don't want to miss any points. I know Dr. Kurt knows all of it, and also copied down a couple of studies as well there, Kurt, to talk about.
Perfect.
But yeah, so and I've got 2 slides too, just towards the end, to show the products that can help support your body with cholesterol. It's certainly not a cure. You know, we don't claim to cure, prevent, or treat any disease or illness. What we can do is support the body, along with appropriate healthy eating, exercise, sleep's important too. Yep. You know, it all makes a difference to, you know, your cholesterol levels. And then of course there is, you know, a genetic component there as well. So yeah, I guess so. To kick off the call, the topic of the call is, why is my cholesterol so high? So that was what we're talking about today. And people think, like Dr. Kurt said, if you're just going really low fat and, you know, you're cutting out all your eggs and not eating any meats, and you're eating all vegan, you can still have definitely high cholesterol. And so we're going to talk through those today. So I guess
Yeah.
I'll read through my, yeah, so I'll
Let
hand
me
back to you. Go on.
let me go through first why it's different than what we think before you start going over your notes, if that's all right.
Sure, yeah, go on. Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people, the studies that came out in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s is like, oh, I mean, cut out the fat, get rid of the fat, get rid of the red meat, and all of that, and you know, increase your you know, your carbohydrates, and that's what we did, and we started to see that a lot of issues started to get worse. So how does it affect it? And what I'm going to say is when you're looking at sugars, which is carbohydrates, your simple carbohydrates, your body starts to view carbohydrates as a toxin. And I've gone over this before, but I'm going to go over it again. Think of it, you know, so if you think of all your arteries and your veins in your body as just being pipes, and in those pipes there's blood that goes through, it goes down the arteries, so it comes out of the heart, it's being pushed under pressure, and it's supplying blood, which has nutrients and fresh oxygen for all of the cells. Then it gets to the cell, and then it goes back through the veins, and it goes back to the heart, where it gets filled with fresh oxygen and fresh nutrients to come back and supply the cells again. So it just keeps circulating through the system. So it's a closed loop system. There isn't any holes in there. That system is closed from beginning to end all the way through. And so there's pressure in there. There's pressure in your veins. 120/80. That's kind of considered to be the normal blood pressure. Now, it's going to be different for different people. You know, somebody my size might have a little bit higher blood pressure than, say, somebody Katie's size. But 120/80 is kind of considered the norm. 80 being the amount of pressure that's in the blood vessels all the time. So when your heart isn't beating, there's 80 pounds of pressure. And that's so that it can push that fresh blood through the arteries, the arterioles, the little capillaries, and push it into the cells. And then it has enough that once it gets into the cells, then it pushes it back into the little venules, and then from the venules it goes into the veins, and then that goes back to the heart. Well, what happens is that when you have a toxin, your body takes those toxins, and your liver and your kidneys and your skin, you're supposed to get rid of toxins, but sometimes it overwhelms that system, that detoxifying system, and that sugar has to be deposited somewhere. So your body takes and says, hey, let's put it over here in what we call the extracellular fluid, the ECF. And what that is that's all the fluid compartments outside of the blood vessels. So the fluid compartments outside the blood vessels is called the extracellular fluid. And so it takes all of those sugars, which are toxins, and it puts it out there. Well, if you get too much, you're going to get a lot of pressure. And what that pressure does is it causes the backup of the system. Ian, you understand this stuff being an engineer, and it causes the backup of pressure. And the way our bodies were designed, we have little sensors that sense that backup of pressure. And so the heart is starting to have to work harder to push the blood through. And that sends a signal to the heart, through the brain. And that tells the heart to start beating harder. You get high blood pressure. The high blood pressure pushes the red blood cells through the arteries at a higher rate. And so think of it like somebody shooting a shotgun shell at a wall. It's going to pop little holes in the wall. Well, that's what happens with your red blood cells, is you're popping little holes in the arterial walls. And then that'll eventually cause little tears, little micro tears. That sends another signal back to your brain, and it tells your brain to produce cholesterol. So your liver produces the cholesterol. It's released into your blood vessels to patch those little holes. So where those little shotgun pellets hit the wall, we're going to patch that up with cholesterol. And that's why the cholesterol goes up. Right. So you can see from what I've just said, the fat, the cholesterol, is actually a good thing because your body makes it. But what then we do is we have the doctors prescribe statin drugs, and these statin drugs lower the amount of cholesterol. And you can just tell that's not a good thing, because if your body's making the cholesterol to patch the holes, and you take and you get rid of the cholesterol, now it's going to patch the holes. So then it forces your liver to go through another system, another metabolic channel, and it produces even more cholesterol than it would have in the beginning. But at the same time, it blocks the CoQ10, which is what your heart needs to survive. So you can see how that whole system works. So Katie, I just wanted to say that so people kind of have an understanding of why sugar is actually the culprit and fat isn't the culprit. You notice I didn't say eating eggs caused that to happen. It happens because you're eating bread and pasta and cookies and cakes and pie.
And then there's that discussion where you're saying carbohydrates and sugars, but you know, we do need carbohydrates, you know, and we need an amount in our, you know, diet. But the important thing is that we haven't removed the fiber from it, that they're naturally complex carbohydrates. They've got the fiber in it that slows down the absorption of that sugar. And so you don't get these spikes in insulin. So that's really important. And what's been interesting is that they've found that people who have issues with cholesterol are more likely to be people that are sort of pre-diabetic, diabetic, or have metabolic syndrome.
Right.
Because there's an issue with the sugar regulation going on, the types of sugars they're eating in their diet, and the absence of good fats in the diet. So
well, I don't even know if the sugar and the cholesterol, I don't know if it's the pre-diabetes, the diabetes, the metabolic syndrome that causes the cholesterol. I think it's happening at the same time.
It doesn't cause the cholesterol, but those people who tend to have those issues are eating the wrong types of food, right?
Too much sugar, too much
exactly.
simple sugar.
Yeah, which is exactly what we're talking about. So that was really interesting. And so, you know, your body does need cholesterol to make hormones. And I've just got some notes here. Your cell membranes needs them. Your brain cells need them. Testosterone levels and your sex drive, it all requires cholesterol. So we do need a good amount in our diet, but of the right type of cholesterol. So do you want to talk about the HDL versus the other one, which is it LDL?
LDL, yeah. So low density and high density. So think of it like this, you know, like here I have the Sisel silver, right? If I shake it up, you can tell at room temperature. You can't see that, can you? Because my camera isn't picking up. So take something that's a liquid like Sisel silver, right? It's a liquid. Take something like a silver nugget, and it's a solid. So one's a high density, one's a low density. So the high density, it means it's more compressed. That would be like your silver nugget, and the low density would be the liquid. So it doesn't solidify at room temperature, and so that's that kind of think of that like a, you know, like the analogy. So you can think of like the high density and low density. So you want to have more of the low density carbohydrates, because they're going to be the ones that are going to stay as a liquid form, so they flow through, versus you don't want to have, like, you can't imagine like putting a stick of butter through your arteries.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And that would be a high density. It's more dense. It's all the fat cells are pushed together.
Yeah. So that was really interesting and so there's, you know, a lot of new information that is available, and there's a lot of misinformation too, and that's why it's so confusing for people, because, you know, a person who I was talking to, a friend, and I said to her, send me a diary of what you've been eating the last 3 days, and she said, well, I've just been eating low fat and lots of, you know, plant, you know, based foods. And I said, well, I need to see exactly what you're eating, because what I was going to do was work out how much actual fat she's eating, how much omega-3s in the diet versus omega-6, look at the ratio, look at the grams of fiber in the diet, look how was there enough protein in the diet. So, you know, as you know, Dr. Hyman and some of these notes that I'd picked up and shared that video with Kurt before the call is, you know, it's not really a simple solution. You can't say just do this, you know, it's a bit more complex than that. You have to look at the whole picture. And so really looking at someone's whole diet rather than just honing in on one thing, I think is an important factor,
right.
You know, to look at. So So we've talked about before the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 in the diet. So do you want to talk to a little, because actually I'll just backtrack. I was talking to my doctor recently because we've been checking all my vitamin and minerals levels, and I've had everything checked. I've had the zinc check, B vitamins, iron, iodine now is in normal range. Everything is spot on in the optimal normal range. So I was really happy about that. And I was talking to, so I was talking to him about omega 3s in the diet, and I said I'm making sure I'm having plenty of omega 3s. I've actually done a calculation and looked at the amount of omega 6 in my diet versus omega 3 and looked at that ratio, and I've been trying to get it as close to 1 to 1 as possible, and ideally not more than 1 to 2, but and the higher the ratio between those two, the more harm it can do to the body. So do you want to share with people about those ratios on the call?
You bet. Yeah. When we've talked about it on this call before, and I used to talk about it on the doctor's clinic call all the time. Typically, if you look at it, what they call the standard American diet, the Western diet, right now, they're finding that the average person is somewhere around 20 to 1. So that means 20 omega-6s for every 1 omega-3. And the problem with it is that we do need a certain amount of omega-6. You don't want to cut out all the omega-6. You need it because you need some inflammatory markers. That's how your body knows if you're sick. That's how your body, there's some repair stuff that goes on with that. But like Katie was just saying, ideally 1 to 1. And back in the old days, when you look at what people used to eat 120 years ago, that's really what it was. And so now, it's closer to 20 to 1. And they're saying here in the States, they're telling us that if we can get it close to 4 to 1, we're actually going to have what they consider to be an ideal a diet situation as far as the bad fat. But the problem with it is that, and the reason that you want to control it is that the omega-6s cause chronic low-grade inflammation. So it's not going to be like where you're going to sprain your ankle and you can see that it's swollen, right? Because that would be acute. This is chronic, and it's going to be low grade. So it's going to be something where, you're not really going to look and see that something's all puffy and swollen up. It's going to be something where the arteries have inflammatory markers. And then what happens is again, like we were talking about earlier, that's what sends that signal to the brain and tells the brain to start producing this sticky cholesterol to patch the holes up.
Yeah. Exactly. And so if you're going to work out like what your ratio is in the diet, and that's where, you'd need to look at all the food that you're eating, look at how many grams of fat and how much of that fat in that particular food is omega-3 to 6, and then actually work out the ratio. So there's a bit of calculations there if you wanted to really analyze it and get into your diet. And then you'd need to look at, say, a typical day's eating or over 3 days and actually, work that out. And what's interesting though about, recording your diet is when you're asked to record what you're eating, generally you change what you're eating once you start recording it, because you go, hang on, I'm taking note. And so you start eating better. And there was this study when I did the nutrition course, and they found that all the participants in the nutrition course who were becoming nutritionists, they had to keep a food diary for 2 weeks, and they had to write down everything, weigh, measure, and that. And out of all the students, only one of them didn't lose weight. And that wasn't the intention. It was just that they had to record what they were eating. Because they started to record and analyze what they were eating, they all started to improve their diet, and it had positive impact. So and that's the thing, is like when we get stressed, we don't really, we're on the run, we'll just grab something to eat. We might skip a meal, then have something for dinner. And if you go back and say, well, what did you eat the last 3 days? A lot of people would probably really struggle to work that out and know exactly what they've eaten. So that can kind of be, tricky. And if you're not consciously aware of those foods that are high in the omega-3 and where all the omega-6 fats are coming from, how are you going to know? You don't know.
That's right.
Like, you're very familiar with what's in what food. So in your head, you already know probably most pretty accurately, whereas the average person who's not educated on this topic doesn't know. And that's what my doctor said to me. He said, unfortunately, people in the general public are not educated on fats, and they don't understand the different types of fats. They don't understand, also the hydrogenated fats, which are really bad, from refined vegetable oils. And they don't understand what sources have omega-3. They don't understand what has 6. They don't understand ratio. So they know none of this, and it's all people say, oh, it's too complicated. It's not once you actually read about it, but it's sort of over most people's head, that sort of information. So,
well, and the problem with it is that right now, at least over here, the keto diet is hot, hot, hot. Everybody's like, oh, I'm
yeah,
on a keto diet. So they think they can eat bacon fat and all of that. And like Katie's just talking about, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just, if I didn't say that thought right away, it was something that would be flashed by.
yeah.
But we got to get people to understand that. So when they do go on a keto diet, they actually go into a healthy lifestyle diet at the exact same time.
Yeah, and picking the best type of fats. So yeah, I've got a couple of slides, and I guess we'll finish off with those. I've got two slides. One is on, looking at the different foods that have the omega-3 to 6. So that was quite a good slide. And then we're going to talk about how, what sort of products can support your cholesterol levels. But before we talk about that, I had some notes here from the Dr. Hyman's talk, Kurt, about your cholesterol and getting your cholesterol checked. And he said that the standard cholesterol test that's done by the doctor is not adequate. That's not the right type of check that you need for cholesterol. And he referred to the NMR cholesterol, or the cardio IQ. And so I guess they really go into looking at, the particle size and other aspects of what makes up, a healthy cholesterol levels and what really is going to impact your heart. So there's different tests out there. So I've got some more information on those tests. So if you're listening to the call and want that, feel free to drop me a message on Facebook. I can send you the information on those type of tests.
Perfect.
And that will give you a better, accurate picture of what's happening with your cholesterol. Because and here's a couple of notes here. It says you want the safe, fluffy, big cholesterol particles. You don't want to have the small, dense ones that are the small particles that are clogging up the arteries.
Yeah, because they'll break loose and they plug those little tiny arteries up. But Katie, you're familiar. I mean, if you have if somebody spills a bunch of crude oil into the ocean down around Australia, what do they do?
Well, they try and soak it up, don't they?
Yeah, and what do they soak it up with?
I actually can't remember, but I
fiber.
Oh yes, wood fiber dust.
Fiber.
Dust.
Yeah, they'll use all kinds of cellulose and fiber and things like that because the fiber sucks up all of that fat, right? So why is fiber really, really important in our diet? Because it sucks up all of that fat that's floating around in your bloodstream, the excess fat that you don't need. It sucks it up and it takes it out, just like having an oil spill. And so really, really important. And I know you're a real big proponent of having enough fiber in your diet. So for a typical man, an adult male, how much fiber should we be getting?
At least 30 grams, and 30 for a female, grams. 25. And I created a free fiber app. It's on the Apple Play Store and Google, the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. So it's on for Android and Apple. You can download it. It's called Fiber Counter.
Counter.
Yeah, and you can go in there and you can enter your food. It's free, and you can enter your food, and it looks up a food database from the US and the government food database, and it calculates how much fiber you've had for the day, and you can do a little calculation. So
that's pretty cool. You created an app that everybody can use for free.
Yes.
You don't make a dime off it. Think about that, everybody. Here's a free app that you can use just to see if you can have enough of that fiber to pick up those oil spills in your body so you can help lower your cholesterol. Katie is helping you get healthier.
Yeah. So if you want to know, a shortcut is basically plant-based foods have fiber. So animal foods, your meats, your dairy, your eggs have no fiber. There's zero fiber in those products. But, your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, they have fiber. So that's where it's really important to have a good amount of fiber in the diet. And again, that comes back to when I was asked people, can I see your food diary? I want to do a calculation and do and add up how much fiber they're eating, because you can eat vegan, you can be vegetarian, you still doesn't mean you're going to be eating enough fiber. It depends, exactly what you're eating. So, there's a bit of a fallacy there. So the other thing
I was talking to a friend of mine. She's one of these health nuts, I mean, probably really similar to you, health nut, really into getting the blood work done, doing the anti-aging. I mean, she knew all about the telomere science and all of that stuff way in the beginning. And she called me up today. She said, Kurt, what do I got to do? She said, my cholesterol is way up. 280. Her cholesterol is at 280.
Wow.
And which is, I don't know if you guys use the same numbers. We want to get it down around 140. So it kind of tells you she's double what she's supposed to be. And I'm like, wow, Beth. I said, and Beth, if you're listening to this call, yes, I'm talking about you. And her cholesterol was double what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And right away I said, I know that you were taking care of yourself a lot better. I said, what's going on? And she said, oh, got this and this and this going on in her life. And she made some dietary changes. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'm not going to have you write down a diary and tell me what you ate. I said, let's just go through the last week, and I said, tell me what you've been eating. And she started listing the different things. And I said, nah, that doesn't sound right. And she said, well, my boyfriend likes to eat cakes and cookies. And I'm like, bingo.
Yeah.
And I said, how much of that stuff you're eating? All of a sudden it came out that she was eating a lot more of that stuff. Because I said, are you sampling it while you're baking it? She said, oh no, I'm eating it. That's it. There's your problem. So we made some dietary changes, which is what we're going to go over now. So what a perfect time to talk about this call. I mean, you and I started talking about doing this call the very next day after I talked to Beth about this.
Yeah. So that's pretty amazing. Well, shall I bring up the I'll pop up the slide because we're at 24. Let me bring up the slide. And so we've got a couple of slides here. We've got one for what foods have the omega-3 in it and 6. And in the other slide, we've got about what products can help and why. So let's just bring this up here. Hopefully it's big enough to see. Hang on, let me just see if this is going to move. There might be a couple things missing here. Let me
Holy mackerel. That's the first one.
Yeah. So we've got omega-3 fatty acids. So we've got the DHA and the EPA, and then we've got the ALA, sorry, a bit of a tongue twister, which is obviously the plant-based ones. But the best sources is definitely fish. Obviously, you can see.
Deep water, cold water fish.
Yep. So you've got them there. And so you go through, you've got mackerel, salmon, whitefish, herring, anchovies, and tuna. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a concern with fish, isn't there, Kurt? Because we're worried about mercury levels too. So, it'd just be so nice if we lived in a world where you could eat as much fish as you want and you never had to worry about mercury. Gee, I'd be eating it all the time, but I kind of limit it a bit. And the way I mitigate that is then through a supplement that's been checked for mercury. But there's other sources of omega-3 there too. So we've got shellfish on there, but there you can see beef, which is grass-fed. And so, Dr. Kurt eats wild game meat, and of course they've all been nibbling on lots of grass. So there's sort of the breakdown of omega-3s there. Now, in terms of seeds and nuts, my favorites are definitely the walnuts and the flax. And I was talking about this with a lady the other day. I was saying, isn't it funny how walnuts look like the brain? When you take one out, they look exactly like the brain. And, they've got a really good, omega-3 in it, which is the ALA. And, the thing is that the brain requires good fats, and you've got a little nut that, when you pull it apart, looks exactly how the brain looks. So, and, I don't know if that was a coincidence.
But if you look at the same chart, I want to just point out, Katie, that if you're looking at this chart, and you and I have talked about this when we did our talks on brain health, when we were talking about brain health, and I pointed out to everybody that if you're a vegan, check this out. You see the category where you get down to the seeds and nuts and the legumes and the vegetables. You don't see any of the check marks under the DHA EPA.
That's
you got
right.
You got the alpha lipoic acid, which is really, really good. It's necessary. It's a really good fat. But EPA is your fat that gets rid of inflammation. So if you're getting inflammation that's caused by eating carbohydrates, and you're eating flax and you're saying, oh, I'm getting plenty of omega-3. Sure you are. You're getting plenty of omega-3, but you're not getting any of the EPA. The EPA is the anti-inflammatory fat. You look at the other thing, you're not getting any DHA. DHA. What is DHA? Well, DHA is the fat that your body uses to make brain cells, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to have that. So if you're a vegan, then you got to go out and you got to go in search of the DHA and the EPA. Look at this chart right here. It's showing you that right off the top of the chart. So you gotta have that balance. You got to be like a deer. You got to be a grazer, you know, and browsing and eating nuts. And I mean, you should see the deer. They go out and they eat acorns and they eat the nuts off the trees. Then they go and they eat a little grass. Then they eat a little corn, and they're getting they're doing the same thing that we should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was doing a vegan diet, I spoke to a naturopath and he said, you're going to be doing yourself a disservice if you're not having some sort of fish oil to get that EPA and omega-3 into your diet and get that up.
That
Said
DHA,
really,
EPA,
yeah,
DHA.
Yeah, really important. So there's a little chart for you there, and that's readily available on the internet. And then we want to finish off by talking about what sort of products support healthy cholesterol and why. So I've just got a little statement here. So, we've talked about the healthy types of fats. We've talked about that. Exercise is really important, getting sleep, but using supplements that can support healthy cholesterol particle size. And as recommended by Dr. Hyman, he says, a multivitamin, a good fish oil, vitamin D3, niacin, and fiber. So those are the key things. So maybe you can elaborate on that. Now we've got, of course, we've got the Triangle of Life on here, and we've got a Christmas special running at the moment. So you've got a good saving on those 3 products at the moment. So, now's a good time to buy them. We've got free sign up for November and December. So that's really exciting. And of course, Spectramax is a multivitamin mineral drink with your antioxidants, essential trace minerals, and fulvic acid. So that is an excellent product in terms of vitamins and minerals. And of course, you've got the Encompass 360. That picture's a little bit fuzzy. That comes in a pack saving at the moment with those other 2 great products. So I thought I'd just throw that up there as well.
Yeah.
But the other
and the nice thing, Katie, is that when we take a look at fucoidan is a natural anti-inflammatory. It reduces inflammation just immensely. And when you start thinking of cholesterol go up, I mean, if I took and smashed my finger with a hammer right now, I could go to the doctor and have my cholesterol checked, and my cholesterol would go up because I smashed my finger. So an injury is going to cause inflammation. That's going to cause your cholesterol to go up. So inflammation. So that's why fucoidan is really, really good. And then Eternity, of course, because it's got the resveratrol. Resveratrol is necessary for fueling the sirtuin genes, which are the genes that repair your damaged DNA. And there's a lot of genetic factors involved with cholesterol and involved with heart disease. And so I'll just leave it at that. I won't get into a big talk about resveratrol and all the genes in that, but very, very important products when you look at the Triangle of Life, and save $16 right now.
Yeah, fantastic. And then you've got, my favorite, which is the Age Pill, and that is awesome value when you buy it in the 6-pack. So highly recommend that. And of course, Age Pill has got a really nice amount of niacin in there. Not to mention lots of other beneficial ingredients. I love the L5-hydroxytryptophan, which is a precursor for serotonin, which is a feel-good hormone. So I love that. Love the Age Pill. And of course, 4Restore is really good too, isn't it, Dr. Kurt? That's also got niacin. It's got other ingredients too that is potentially beneficial.
You bet. The L-arginine, if you don't know about L-arginine and L-citrulline, you really need to look them up, because what they do is they're the precursors for your body to make nitric oxide. And the nitric oxide opens up those arteries. Think of it like running a roto-rooter, an artery cleaner. It runs it right through those arteries, and it cleans it all, cleans the mess up. And, and so if you do have some blockage, which I would say as adults, we all do, they're even finding that if they test kids under the age of 20, they're finding almost 100% of children have the high cholesterol as well.
Yep.
Blockage.
Yep. Fantastic. And of course, Super Omega Plus. And if you're not getting enough omega there, you also still need to consider your diet too, don't you, Kurt? You can't just go, okay, I'm just going to take the supplement and then do whatever I want. Yeah,
but the nice thing about the Super Omega Plus, you remember, Sisel is a formulation company. We don't just sell, omega-3. What we do is we make formulations. So if you look at the product, it's got a balance between the omega-3s and omega-6s, the omega-7, the omega-9s. It's got some omega-5 in it. But then on top of it, the way that Tom designed it was that it has those different oils from different sources, because you might you know, like we were showing, if you get it from a fish, it's gonna be different than if you get it from a shellfish. If you get it from red meat, it's gonna be different. And so we get it from different sources. And then on top of it, they put the CoQ10 in there. And they didn't just fairy dust the CoQ10 in. They actually put in a therapeutic amount of CoQ10, which is a necessary enzyme, coenzyme Q10, right? And you know, you and I've talked about this before. Why is it coenzyme Q10? Well, because coenzyme Q9 is actually one that it doesn't work. It doesn't do the same things that CoQ10 does. The 10 is the factor that makes it work so well.
Yeah, fantastic. And then we've got the Encompass 360, which is your multivitamin mineral supplement in a capsule form. Do you want to touch on that quickly there?
You bet. The Encompass 360. I mean, there's just so many nutrients that we aren't getting. According to the you know, studies that have been done by Harvard, they found that 97% of people in the United States, and I'm just going to use the United States as an example since I'm here. Harvard found that 97% of people do not get the vitamins and nutrients and minerals from their diet. And the only way that they can get the vitamins and nutrients is, Harvard says, a prudent person will take a multivitamin. And I say, if you're going to take a multivitamin, take a good one. Why would you spend your money on something like the most popular vitamin in the country? The guy that formulated that, he told me you might as well drive down the street, open the window, and throw it out the window of the car. He said it'll do just as much good throwing it out the window as if you put it in your body. That's the most popular vitamin in the country.
Yeah, it's available in just your average supermarket or Walmart.
Yeah. And I won't name it because I don't want them to come down on me and say, Dr. Fisnick, what were you saying?
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, that kind of wraps up our call for today. And hopefully that information was useful. I think it's a really interesting topic. If you want any more information, you know, in regards to anything we've shared on the call, reach out to Kurt or myself. Happy to help you out. And we hope you have a great rest of the day. We've got some awesome Christmas specials running at the moment, so do check out those packs, take advantage of those savings, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks for being with us, Katie. Everyone, thanks for being with us tonight. And for those of you that are watching the recording of this, get back to the person that got you here and just let them know that, hey, I'm interested in getting started in some of that health related stuff. I want to get healthier, you know, and it's important. You got to start somewhere. Why not start with something that's as simple as getting your heart health by lowering your cholesterol?
Excellent.
Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.